Donnie Bobbitt began his career with Deloitte in the public accounting world as a CPA. After Deloitte, Donnie joined Speedway Motorsports, which is based in Charlotte and owns multiple speedways and motorsports related businesses around the country. Next, Donnie was with Campus Crest Communities, a vertically integrated student housing company based in Charlotte that he helped take public on the New York Stock Exchange in 2010 and got to ring the opening bell at the exchange. Well, that's exciting. After Campus Crest, Donnie ran his own consulting practice that focused on CFO support for companies in a variety of industries. Currently, Donnie is CFO of Adams Beverages, the 5th largest Anheuser-Busch distributor in the US. He was responsible for the coordination of all Adams financial activities and policies, in addition to leadership of operational administration, including finance, accounting, HR, and IT. He's a graduate of Wake Forest University, where he also played on the baseball team. Tom Burwell is the Chief Financial Officer with diverse and progressive financial and operational leadership, having worked for global companies ranging in size from 400 million to 5 billion. He's a strategic senior leader with a track record of success in business development, mergers and acquisitions, operational improvement, building teams, driving change, and financial and strategic planning. Translating the strategy of the organization into day-to-day operational actions has been a key focus of his career, whether that involved process improvement, deeper understanding of the operational and financial drivers of success, mergers and acquisitions, or using the capital markets to provide the necessary liquidity to fund growth. Tom's industry experience includes aerospace, automotive, building products, diversified industrial manufacturing, electrical manufacturing, life sciences, and textiles. Additionally, he has extensive experience in M&A, having led merger and divestiture transactions valued at approximately $2 billion in aggregate. Tom currently serves as Senior VP, Chief Financial Officer, Treasurer, Secretary, member of the board of ECMD, which stands for East Coast Molding, an integrated supply chain company serving the building materials market. And he's an FE&G member. So those are the introductions. You know who the Roundtable is. I really value their time. Thank you guys. You can tell by their backgrounds, they are very experienced, and we're really fortunate to have them share with us today a little bit about their companies and the impact that the pandemic has had on their businesses. So with that, I'm going to ask James if he would tell us a little bit more about Wilbert, and I believe he's got a little slide presentation for us.
Can you see that now?
We can.
Okay, great. So Wilbert Plastic Services is a contract manufacturer for leading OEMs in North America. We form plastic parts using custom engineered molds, and we perform secondary value-added processes like painting and assembly operations. Some of the customer names you may recognize, and we serve a variety of end markets that result in a meaningful diversification. One end market that I'll point out here is funeral services, where we supply plastic liners for burial vaults. And during the pandemic, we saw an increase in that part of our business. The criteria that were established by the Department of Homeland Security designated us as an essential business, and thus our operations continued without shutdown. One final point on the end markets is that our automotive end market wasn't always in the 6% range. Tom, you had mentioned this earlier in a conversation. In early 2019, we pivoted away from the automotive business. Our end market was 36% automotive in 2018. We sold the businesses that serve Ford. We did almost $85 to $90 million a year with Ford on interior hard trim. And we sold that business and reduced our automotive exposure to about 6%. Our plastic forming processes include thermal forming that we conduct in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and in Belmont, North Carolina. And we also do injection molding out of Easley, South Carolina, and Harrisburg, North Carolina. You can see that our customers tend to be clustered around the manufacturing locations, but we do ship nationwide and to international locations. So that's a quick introduction to Wilbert Plastic Services.
Thank you, James. Great. That was a great presentation. Loved it. Just digressing a little bit. If you want to put your contact information and your background in the chat, please feel free to do so. Somebody's already asked for some free samples from Donnie Bobbitt. I don't think that's included in this particular Zoom, but we will take it under advisement for next time. Donnie. So next, Steve Watson, could you give us a little bit of background on Biltmore for those who may not know Biltmore, which I can't
Thank you,
believe
Tom. I will. Biltmore was the home of George Vanderbilt. It was built in 1895. It's a great example of a French Renaissance castle in Western North Carolina. It is still owned by the descendants of George Vanderbilt. It is a for-profit company. We take no money from any governmental entity. We have to make a profit in order to preserve. We offer Vanderbilt style of hospitality. It's an oasis, and it's a time travel back in time. 2019, we hosted over 1.7 million visitors. Ourselves were about 250 million. We have 2 hotels on property. And the house is just a great example of the Gilded Age with authentic furnishings and art collections. And today we have about 1,800 employees. We're the second largest employer in Buncombe County.
You're also, aren't you self-sustained on with solar power?
We're about 40%. We have about 3 acres of solar that we did back in 2009 and 10. And it's been a great investment for us and has worked beautifully, but it produces about 40% of our total power.
Can't you see that going up by 40?
Yes, you sure can.
Yeah.
And we've had tons of arguments. I want to put Biltmore Energy Company out there as a sign, and our PR folks won't let me do it. So I think it would be a great testament to because George Vanderbilt was truly one of the first in sustainability and was a great environmentalist. If you look at Asheville back in Asheville in Western North Carolina back in the 1890s, it was clear cut. There were hardly any trees, and George, of course, planted about 128,000 acres, which eventually became his widow sold it to Tisgan National Forest to the federal government. But he basically planted all the trees and was truly the first of American forestry.
Well, now that we're trying to get a little bit back to normal, everybody on this call, if you haven't been up there, you ought to go. And also the Village Hotel, which is your second one, right, Steve?
Yes. Yes.
It's really, really a nice hotel. You ought to look into that, Thanks, Steve. Hey, Donnie, you're up next, buddy.
All right. Yes, hey guys, Donnie Bobbitt, I'm CFO for Adams Beverages. And Adams we're a 3rd generation company. Most of these beer distributors are hitting 3rd generation now. They started right after Prohibition. Our company started in 1937 in Dothan, Alabama. So we distribute alcohol products and non-alcoholic beverages. 97% of our business is through beer and alcohol. We've got operations, as mentioned, in Alabama and North Carolina. We have 7 facilities, 3 in Alabama, 1 in Dothan, 1 in Auburn, 1 in Tuscaloosa, and then 4 spread across North Carolina, here in Charlotte, Lumberton, Wilmington, and Pollocksville, which is just south of Newbern. We're about 450 million in revenues, which equates to approximately 22 million cases of product per year. As Tom mentioned, we're sitting in the fifth spot as far as size of Anheuser-Busch affiliated distributors in the country. We've got just over 550 employees. We about 2/3 of our business is North Carolina, about 1/3 of it is through Alabama. So as I mentioned, we're affiliated with Anheuser-Busch, which, for those of you who don't know, AV has become the largest craft brewer in the country with all their acquisitions over the last 10 years by acquiring companies like Wicked Weed up there in Asheville, Goose Island out of Chicago, Devil's Backbone, Virginia, several other brands around the country, which you might not realize that they own. And we also distribute Constellation Brands, which is Corona, Modelo, Sweetwater, Mike's Hard Lemonade, which owns White Claw, and then Bold Rock, and then also several of the larger Charlotte-based crafts. We distribute Old Mac, Sycamore, Legion, Catawba, Southern Tier, and Sugar Creek here in the local area. We also have a small wine division, but mostly that service the on-premise, which is bars and restaurants, which up until a couple months ago was pretty much shut down. So we have 28 counties in North Carolina. We stretch from Charlotte all the way over to Wilmington along the southern border of the state, up to Morehead City, and then back across the state, covering Kinston, Goldsboro, Fayetteville, Pinehurst, and then all the way back here.
Great, thank you very much. Great introduction. Mr. Burwell, you're up.
All right, thank you, Tom. So I work for ECMD, and ECMD is a fully integrated company composed of 5 different companies that service different end markets within the building product space. So we are a national supply chain provider to Lowe's, as well as to most of the national pro brands, including independent lumber yards and independent hardware stores around the Southeast, primarily Southeast, Southwest, parts of the Midwest, etc. We provide a wide variety of products, including moldings, boards, stair products, forestry products, and just a hodgepodge of building products, including composite decking, columns and stair systems and all those sort of things. So really a full service provider. We manage the entire supply chain for our customers from the time the tree is dropped in the forest to the time it's picked off the customer's shelves. We pretty much manage that in a real turnkey, vendor managed solution for our large customers. So you would imagine, being in the building product space, it's been a very interesting and fascinating and profitable, fast-growing time for us. So we'll cover some of the COVID impacts as we get through the meeting here.
Isn't ECMD like one of the leading staircase, manufacturers?
Yes, we are within the U.S. Crown Heritage is the brand that we sell our staircase products under, and we'll sell a complete stair system. Primarily, most of them go directly into the national home builders when they put in their stair systems for their finished homes, or if they're doing big remodels. Right.
So I don't know what I learned. I know ECMD pretty well. What I learned was that I guess these home builders don't necessarily build their own stairs; they just get them from you, right? Yeah,
we pretty much provide the entire system for them directly right on the home site where they're building the
That's cool.
Product.
That's cool. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. I don't know, did you mention that ECMD's in Wilkesboro?
No, I didn't. It was started in Wilkesboro, which is no mystery because Lowe's started in Wilkesboro, so right. I understand the relationship there.
Right. Okay, thank you guys. That was great. So I'm going to reverse the order and ask each of the CFOs, what were the positive and negative impacts that the COVID-19 pandemic had on your businesses. And Tom, I'm going to start with you, and we'll just reverse the order of the introductions.
Yeah, certainly the positive impact. Anyone that's followed, or sold a home or been looking to buy a home or buy lumber or something to remodel a home, they know what the impacts were on our business. It's certainly not foreseen by anyone. I think we, as an organization, we made a very bold and collective decision relatively early that we saw this coming, not before it happened, but early on within the first month of it happening. While others were retrenching and getting rid of inventory, the executive team made the decision that now was the time to invest in inventory. And we have been rewarded for that risk and that decision throughout the remainder of 2020, starting in April of 2020 on through to today. So certainly positive growth, I would call hyper growth within our business has been the positive. Being able to see how scalable our business model is. We knew we had the right processes, the right people, really to challenge the organization with 20% plus growth in a 9-month period really proved out the scalability and flexibility of our people processes. Not to say it was all easy. I mean, we have people working, 12, 15-hour days in some cases, just trying to keep customers supplied with the demand they were generating. But certainly positive to see how well the business model responded, positive to see how much in demand the value we were adding to our customers was. On the negative side, I mean, clearly the impact on our employees, we've tried to work through that and hire additional people. Procuring talent in this environment wherein we have all the government stimulus and some of the things. I was literally at lunch today and overheard a conversation where it's kind of a common refrain, and I'm sure most people on the call have heard this, where people were talking about, yeah, so-and-so quit their job because they got their $1,400 check. I mean, we're employing people in distribution centers, we're employing truck drivers, people like that. So it's been very challenging, finding the additional workers to help meet the demand that our customers were generating. The other negative is some of the supply chain impacts. We've had a long history of creating relationships, deep relationships with our vendors. We manufacture a lot of what we sell, but the majority of what we sell, we distribute. Like I said, at the time it's dropped in the trees dropped in the forest, whether it be Brazil or Argentina or New Zealand or Eastern Europe. We have the relationships with the people who are providing us the finished product that we distribute to our customers. And we were able to get product that others couldn't just because of those deep, almost 40-year relationships we've developed. So, being able to call in on that and do some of that was very positive, but it's negative. The flip side is you can't get all the product you need. And while we're certainly doing better than our competitors, we feel anecdotally and the information that we're receiving from our customers, it still is not a good feeling to know that there are customers out there that aren't able to serve their customers because we just can't get the product, whether it be containers from Asia or just truck drivers or what have you. Really being able to get our product to our customers 100% of the time has been a challenge. It's really been a negative aspect. Mm-hmm. The final aspect has just been dealing with COVID. I think the management team has done a very good job of. We have a safety leader. Safety is one of our key priorities. Obviously, as a company, we have a HR leadership. They've really been instrumental in understanding CDC guidelines, understanding the various laws of the various states in which we operate, and really being proactive and in the forefront of keeping our employees safe and following the various guidelines, sometimes competing guidelines, not really understanding what the right answer was, just trying to make the best decision we could. A lot of mask wearing, a lot of people out in 100-degree heat in distribution centers wearing masks or gaiters or what have you. But we've had a really, really good record of limiting infection. And as I can't remember who mentioned it earlier, James mentioned it, we were obviously, Home Center and Lowe's and others, we were, I can't think of the terminology, but basically we were mandated to remain open because we were considered essential to the economy and the people that we serve. So we have not had to shut down for one day any of our operations, although we've done a very good job of cleaning and maintaining safety for our employees. So it's been a very interesting, exciting time. Just continue to be mindful and vigilant of managing the supply chain and just managing the COVID risks with the best information that we have available for us.
Just reminds me of the COVID-19 joke that I heard recently about a family that was told since some of the restrictions have been lifted to go out and have a real expensive dinner. And they took a selfie eating takeout at the lumber department of Lowe's.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Donnie, you're up, man.
All right. Yeah, I mean, similar to what Tom said, I mean, fortunately, we were designated as a essential business, being in the food and beverage distribution space. So I think hopefully everybody agrees alcohol was essential over the last year and a half. We actually did pretty well. We did it through not a traditional way. We ended up about 3% in volume for calendar 20 versus 19. And the way we split our business is on-premise and off-premise. The on-premise business is bars and restaurants. So if you think about, you go to somewhere, you drink the beer on-premise, you drink it in their facility. It could be bars, restaurants, the stadium, the airport, all that's on-premise. That's about 15% of our business volume-wise. A little bit more from a gross profit standpoint, because that on-premise business is heavily weighted to craft products, which has a little higher gross profit than the core domestic stuff that we sell. So for 9-10 months, that business was completely shut down. And it all shifted plus some to the off-premise business, which is grocery stores, convenience stores. Primarily it was grocery stores. So we were able to get through the year actually up in volume. Profits followed along. Some of the harder things, some of the negative things, similar to Tom saying, we deliver our product, there's no other way around it via drivers, truck drivers, mainly they're CDL drivers, CDLA drivers. And they just, even before COVID, they were hard to find, hard to retain, extreme competition out there. And then with COVID and the expansion and the e-commerce channel and the pressure on the logistics side, the US Foods and Cisco's and Amazon's out there just paying sign-on bonuses and paying more than we were paying. It's put pressure on us on that front, as well as put pressure on us in the warehouse for the same reasons. With the industrial activity that's expanded, the e-commerce business, and that's something that's not going to change. And that pressure is going to be there for a long time. So, we're trying to figure out. So we're actually doing an expansion of our facility here in Charlotte, getting ready to double the size of it. And we may be introducing some semi-automation where it helps with the picking of our products and building pallets, which will can offset some of the turnover and need for some of the employees in the warehouse. Another thing that was tough this past year was product availability. There was an aluminum can shortage. It still continues today. It's not quite as bad as it was in 2020, but if you think about it, most of the products that are sold out of grocery stores are the highest percentage is canned product. And people were buying 24, 30 packs of product in 2020. Just in bulk, just at the same time they were buying all this toilet paper and tissue paper, they were buying big packages of beer. So that just kind of stripped the system of aluminum cans. Seltzers, hard seltzers have continued to grow. They're doubling just about every year. Those come in primarily the tall, slim aluminum cans. So there was a shortage of those products. One of the other things, I think this is kind of a positive and a negative. It's negatives from a cash flow standpoint, but we decided for all the on-premise accounts that we work with, the bars, restaurants, they had unopened packaged product, which is bottles, cans, or untapped kegs. We bought all that product back from them, trying to put some cash flow back into their hands. Because, if anybody has anything to do with the bar and restaurant business, it's tough. It's small margins. And, when they buy our product, it's a COD state. So we drop off, 100 or 5 kegs of beer to whatever bar today, they have to pay us for it, either with a check money order or overnight to an electronic payment. So it's tough cash flow on those businesses. So we tried to help them out a little bit. Fortunately, we ended up in a pretty good spot financially in 2020, but not traditionally how we normally do it.
Interesting. Steve Watson.
Let me give a backdrop of our company and the industry, just what we were facing. We're in the tourism business, and as you can imagine, in early March, that was not a good place to be. Our state was restrictive compared to many other, and our county was very restrictive. So we closed mid-March, and then we were able to open back up early May, at least for the grounds. And then by the end of May, we were able to open the house back up. The positives that we got from this is we completely redesigned our business model, our profit model, and made our company a lot less fragile, meaning we realized very quickly that debt was evil, and we're completely out of debt today. I'm thrilled. We completely changed our organization during this time. Our executive committee, we had 2 members of the executive committee retire, and we replaced them with 4 other members, which has allowed us to perform at a very high level. We've had unbelievable financial discipline. And it allowed us to have one of our better years we've ever had. We went from managing, believe it or not, we were managing yearly. We went to managing daily, at least initially. And specifically, we realized that cash was king. And then, thank goodness we're now monthly. I hope to transition to quarterly shortly. But our issue was we never knew what was around the corner. I mean, even as late as January this year, our county added additional restrictions to the restaurants. They went from the statewide mandate was 50% occupancy, and our county went to a 25% occupancy, and they actually even seriously considered restricting the hotels. Thank goodness they didn't, because that was a big help for us. The other positives, it's amazing how much control over things you don't think you have any control over. We've never been very politically involved. The state basically shut us down. The county basically shut us down. But it was amazing how, if we put together a very strong safety plan, which we did, and realized early mid-April there was not much out there. We had to really just do our best, and we put together a very strong safety plan. To our knowledge, we have not infected or spread the virus employee to employee, employee to guest, or guest to employee. And we've tested over 700 of our employees, and not a single one of the ones we tested had coronavirus, which was pretty darn amazing. Now, we've had employees that had it, they got it from their family, and we traced it back, but we've had no issues whatsoever here. So our safety protocols were dead on. We were wearing masks long before anybody else did. The other positive is it really gave, it allowed us to reemphasize why we're here. We were here to preserve Biltmore. We were here to keep it open and keep it owned by the same Vanderbilt family. And preservation means, we were able to maintain the buildings. We were able to drastically change our business model, which allowed us to, we have to make a profit in order to preserve. And the other thing we've done this year, we do have fewer employees, but the employees we've had, we've really reinvested back in them. We've put more money, time, and energy, and given more time off than ever before. So our goal was Our people are our number one asset because they give great hospitality. They give hospitality Vanderbilt style. And so we've put a ton of money back into them. The negatives, we lost some employees, and that was a tough thing because, I knew just about every single one of them. So we were not able to bring back all our employees through about mid-March. We were about 35% down in volume. Thank goodness from mid-March on now, we're back up to where we were in 2019 as far as volume.
Thank you, Steve. James?
Yeah, I think some of our metrics are similar to what you've heard before. Our business is very even, about $37 million a quarter in sales. And in second quarter of 2020, it fell 31% when the great economic lockdown was implemented. And so that sort of precipitous fall in revenue and the unevenness of the demand caused a lot of production scheduling difficulties. Of course, we increased the sanitation efforts and personal protective equipment protocols like everyone did. But the production scheduling difficulties made it very difficult for human resources and our plant management. We wanted to attempt to maintain efficient production runs, minimizing tool changeover time. And so we had to give careful attention to which employees were scheduled for work and which were furloughed. We tried to use rotating schedules to get employment hours to all who wanted to work. But we had to give priority to our most technical positions, the positions that are most difficult to fill. Our process technicians, our tool changeover associates, and our maintenance technicians. Those are skills that are hard to replace in the open market. And so priority was given to those positions in terms of the scheduling. For other employees, we worked on preventative maintenance and capital projects and training and general housekeeping to try and give them production hours and to allow us to have an efficient increase once the subsequent production schedules increased, which they did. Our volumes bounced back in the third quarter and up to almost normal levels, and achieved that in the fourth quarter. One of the things we feel strongly in is maintaining workforce equity. So all of our salaried employees were expected to continue to report to the office. Our manufacturing employees can't do their jobs from home. And so we expected all of our salaried employees to continue to report to the office with very few exceptions. Of course, we eliminated travel and increased virtual meetings like everybody. I think somebody had made the comment about making the investment in inventory that turned out to be rewarded as we were trying to maintain efficient production schedules. We too built up increases in inventory, and our days of inventory on hand ballooned up about 20 days, which is about a $7 million investment in inventory. But as our volumes came back, that investment was rewarded, and our profitabilities, and we didn't suffer a loss. Second quarter, even though our sales were down 31%, we still were able to eke out a profit in the quarter, and our profit margins in the third and fourth quarter actually expanded, and attributable to our labor cost techniques that we put in place during the second quarter and made us a lot more efficient in the third and fourth quarter. And so we were able to drop more of that through to the bottom line.
Okay. I know the next question may have been answered in some of your statements before, but I'm going to kind of open it up to any of you for CFOs. Were there any specific pivots that you guys had to make in your business as a result of the pandemic? Anybody?
If I'll go first, that our decision to get out of automotive in 2019 turned out to be a very fortuitous decision. I don't know if you all remember, but the automotive industry almost basically shut down for 6 weeks. So our decision in 2019 to get out of automotive put us in a much more financially stable environment than we otherwise would have been.
We had to, our volume initially was down at least 35%. We had to completely change our business model. I think several people have talked about, we completely cut out travel and entertainment. We completely cut out meals. We reduced our advertising to the lower level. So that pivot was huge for us. The other pivot was, we focused on cash. And one of the things we did pre-pandemic, and this was about 7 years ago, we formed our own insurance company, and we capped it specifically in 831A, which is one that the IRS likes, not the B. But we did our own captive insurance company, and it covered about a fourth of our losses, which was huge for us. So we didn't, and it not only covered the losses, but it funded about a fourth of the losses. The other thing we did early on in managing the cash is we doubled our lines of credit immediately. This was the last week in March, right before the whole push for the various loans. So that it was managing daily, managing your cash, and just the pre-preparation was helpful.
You want to give out a little shout out to Wells Fargo?
Yes, they jumped through the hoops, and I spent 8 hours making a commercial with them. So you can actually see the commercial. But yeah, they did a great job. They jumped through the hoops for us, and oddly enough, we never used it. Our business rebounded quickly, but I will tell you, on March 31st, I slept like a baby because I knew that we would not run out of money. And, that gave us enough runway. We never got into the fire sale issues. We never tried to, discount product to get it, just to meet cash flow. And a lot of that was just having that extra loan there just in case we needed it.
Great. So I'm going to pause here for a second. I know that James Milton has a hard stop at 2:00. If there's anybody in attendance who has a specific question for James, would be a great time to speak up. Anybody? All right. Hold your hand up or speak up if you do. What about culture, guys? James, how did the culture change at Wilbert as a result of pandemic? I know you mentioned a little bit that it was kind of business as usual if you're salaried employees, but.
Well, first and foremost, our customer demand, there's not a lot of inventory in our supply chain. Our OEMs expect us to deliver just in time. And so the requirement to deliver the customer's orders on time and complete is something that we spend a lot of time on. And during this uneven demand, we would get orders, they would change them up, down, cancel, all types of things. And we stayed in constant contact with the customers in terms of understanding what their requirements were. We had a few supply chain issues, of getting product from China on some of the components, and we found alternative sources. So I would say that that, always staying close to your customer and understanding their requirements. But when this time the customer really understood that they were asking us to jump through hoops, helped us develop even more solid relationships with our customers, especially the ones that had the uneven demand.
Good, great. Steve, what about the culture at Biltmore?
The main thing for us was, we were faced with, again, we were against tremendous odds, and it really showed, we really embraced innovation. We really tried to unremember all the things we had previously done and how did we start from scratch. We dropped a lot of the, about 20% of our sales because they were not profitable. But we really tried to teach our employees, we spent a lot of time on addressing fear because everybody was afraid they were going to get the virus. And we tried to walk them through that, you got to wear your mask, you've got to wash your hands. And if you do that, you got an 85% chance you won't catch it. And by the way, that's the same thing with vaccines, same percentage, at least from what we studied. It was working with them to help them become comfortable, putting them behind, putting up protective shields wherever we could. And just, you really spent a lot of time with our employees, and we spent a lot of money just saying thank you. We know the struggles you're going through. We know that many of you have kids at home, and we tried, we're appropriately to allow our employees to work from home. Now, when you're guest facing, you can't work from home. So we did have some that worked from home, like information technology, marketing people, and so on. But it was the culture, innovate. I think our culture became a lot more innovative, and I think we truly, part of our mission statement is preservation. And preservation meaning one of our biggest assets is our people, and we truly tried to prove that during this time period.
Tom, our cultural change really, I think we saw our culture become more scalable. As I mentioned earlier, the whole organization, we really tested the scalability of it. And I say that in the sense that our founder, a majority shareholder and chairman, for reasons I won't get into, had to pretty much sequester himself and work remote for a period of time due to our underlying health conditions. And he was really the face of the company and the people that the employees, the person that the employees look to, to rally around, and him removing himself from the organization, while still being involved in all the meetings remotely, and a large number of our inside and outside salespeople who really manage that day-to-day relationship working remotely and not being in the customers' offices every day. It was a real challenge to pivot for the company and a challenge to our culture, but really our culture bore out, and we remained key to our focus on customer service and our focus on supporting each one within the company. It's a real team-focused, customer-focused culture, and we maintained that throughout the entire pandemic, and with all the stressors with people being remote and desperate places and having to rely on technology and all those sort of things that heretofore we hadn't really relied on. So it was interesting to see the company's culture evolve, even though we were more spread out as opposed to just being in the single corporate office.
Donnie, how about at Adams?
Yeah, for us, we've always been a big sales-focused organization, with also a large logistics component. It just reminded us how important it is to support and appreciate the customer-facing positions. Because we've got sales reps, drivers. They had to continue going out to the market on a daily basis, Monday to Friday, to either go meet with accounts, take orders, place orders, and then drivers and merchandisers that would go and deliver the product to the market. So Same, I forget who said it, but everybody was concerned about, because they're doing all this face-to-face interaction with grocery store, convenience store employees. They they were the ones that helped lead the charge for us generating the results we did in 2020. And obviously, we supported them everywhere we could, the PPE stuff and keeping the warehouse clean, the trucks clean, all those procedures. But just reminded us how important those folks are to our business, also in this competitive landscape on an employee basis.
Right. James, regarding forward thinking, since we've got just a few minutes before you have to jump off, what does it look like for Wilbert going forward post the pandemic?
Well, fortunately, all these efforts to maintain the business were successful, and we had started a process of marketing the company for sale at the end of the first quarter. So we were impacted for a while. We just decided to use the second quarter to continue to prepare, and if the third quarter came back, then we were going to hit the market, which we did. And we were successful in selling the company. We closed the deal on May the 10th. And, part of the reason we were considered attractive is how well we did manage through the COVID business and established higher profitability going forward. So we're under new ownership as of today. And so we'll see how the future goes forward.
Good luck on that. Steve, what does it look like for Biltmore going forward now that things are opening up?
Tom, one of the things we found is when we were restricted in the house to capacity, we used to run about 10,000 people a day on a peak day through the house, and the most we could run with social distancing was 4,000. And with a lower expense load, we ended up with a better profit, and our guest experience went way up. So by taking the crowd out of the house, we actually were able to extract a lot more value. Our customers liked it better. So I think going forward, we'll continue to make sure the experience is as strong as it is right now at lower numbers. Also continue the financial discipline, and that's huge for us. It's just really watching everything, making sure that whatever we do spend is value added.
Great. Donnie?
Yeah, I think some of it's still got to play out for us as it relates to the on-premise and off-premise business, how quickly these bars and restaurants come back, how long it takes them to come back. I think there's some that'll, I think, be permanently impacted, because of the lesser business travel in the country for the bigger companies that figured out, and smaller companies figure out they can transact business without sending people across the country for a 2, 3, 4 hour meeting and bring them back, and they're staying in a high-end hotel room, high-end dinner. I think that part of the business is the one that's going to be the most susceptible. We took the opportunity to also change how we sell into some of these, mainly the on-premise, the bars, restaurants. Converted the majority of those accounts throughout the pandemic. We had the time to online ordering as opposed to sending sales reps out into the market every day. They still go out into the market, and now they're doing more of a brand education and style education on our portfolio as opposed to just trying to fill out an order sheet. So hopefully all those things lay the groundwork for continued growth for us in the future.
Right. How about ECMD, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, understanding, where we are relative to cycle. I mean, is this a temporary, transitory level of demand, or is it, as most of the pundits and bankers and macroeconomic forecasters say, it's the beginning of a new cycle? So really understanding, again, we continue to set records and have outstanding profitability and sales, which is wonderful. Sounds like I'm complaining. I'm certainly not, but understanding from a future standpoint, 6 months, 12 months from now, what does it look like, and making sure we are making the right investments today for sustainability and future growth, as opposed to just reacting to an overheated market. So that's really where we're spending a lot of our time, thinking through, what is the future state? How long is this a new cycle? How long is it going to last? It really seems like there is some good underpinning to a cycle beyond just this crazy COVID period. But yet, when people are now able to go to Europe on vacation and take a cruise and go to places other than or actually go back to Disney, what have you, at full capacity, will people decide, I'm tired of spending money on my house, I'm going to go blow that money on that big vacation. So we'll see. I think that's really the big thing. Once things truly return to normal, what does housing demand look like? I think is our biggest question right
now. James, I know you have to hop off. Thank you very much for participating. I'm not trying to, you can leave whenever you need to leave, okay? But
thanks, Tom. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you very much. You exceeded all my expectations, just to let you know. So come back again. I'm going to kind of throw it out to the audience if there are any questions, or if there are any CFOs, CEOs. Not going to pick on anybody like Mark, but in case he wants to say something about his business, and share, because I know you're not, you guys aren't on the roundtable, but if there's something that you'd like to contribute to the topic, let me, speak up. Any questions?
All right, Tom, since you called me out, I'll briefly chime in about our business, I guess, just to add color and context to the discussion. So our company's a company called Ballantyne Strong. It's actually in a couple of lines of business, but our primary operating business is in the cinema space. We manufacture most of the screens in the movie theaters in the US and some into Europe and Asia as well, but primarily North American supplier of screens to the cinemas, as well as managed services and break fix in the US. So as you might imagine, our primary operating business got pretty well destroyed this time last year. I think our revenues in Q2 of last year were down 85, 90%, something like that. So we took, just like everybody else, maybe more so, had to take actions, furlough people, cut costs. Executives didn't take pay, took reduced pay for the bulk big time of the year. So we took a lot of actions. We survived the worst of it. We saw business kind of come back, to about 60% of normal, maybe 50% of normal by Q3, Q4. And I'd say in that line of business is probably still at that kind of 60% of normal level, which is pretty good considering the cinemas are reporting, 85% declines in revenue so far in Q1. We're doing a little better than our customers, which is good, but not sustainable. But we expect to see the cinema business bounce back, despite, what you might hear about, streaming and all the other competition for cinema. As cinemas are reopened in China and other places where restrictions have been removed a little earlier, they've actually seen record attendance. So we're pretty optimistic about the second half of 2021 and into 2022 for our cinema line of business. We think it'll come back. It's unclear what the business will look like long term, but we think there's going to be a significant pent-up demand, not only from the consumers, but also from the studios who haven't released movies in the last year, who have a lot of content to put out. So we're, long story short, we took action. We somehow survived the worst of it. We sold a couple of other lines of business, positioned ourselves in financially more solid financial position than we were a year ago. and I think we're leaner, better, and I think we'll have some increased demand coming up in the second half. That'll be good for the business, and we're I think some of the distress of the pandemic made companies like ours stronger for the long period.
When are movie theaters going to open back up here?
They're pretty much all open now in almost every market. The problem is there's just nothing to show. I mean, there's no compelling movies to get consumers back into the seats. So, Top Gun comes out July 4th. That's really the first big name release. There's a couple coming out this month, but that'll be the start of kind of a flood of releases that'll start to bring people back to the cinemas. So they're open. They just don't really have content and inventory is their problem right now.
All I can say is congratulations for keeping Valentine strong in business.
But it was, somehow we made it, but we also have a couple of other lines of investments that are passive, but we have one in the lumber timber business where we, one of our minority investments, we own 30%, recently acquired 6 sawmills up in Canada. So hopefully that helps with Tom's lumber problem. So maybe down the road, I don't know.
Yeah. Any questions from the attendees at this point? Thank you, Mark, for letting me put you on the spot.
Hey, no problem. No problem.
Don, do you have any specific questions that our CFO panel could address?
Oh, I could go on for days, but I do have one for Donnie. What he did about refunding back to the bars and restaurants. Who made that decision and why?
Yeah, well, first off, we had to get it legally approved by the state because you can't.
Okay. Okay, 'cause that was my real question. Yes.
Normal times you can't do that. You can't bring product back, give them money. It's a one-way transaction, which is good for us. But so our state association, the North Carolina Beer and Wine and Distributors Association, lobbied the state to get an approval where, because they were also lobbying the state to try to get these retail accounts more help and more funding, which the state was dragging the feet on. It was a small, for what we did, and the overall was probably, it was a small drop in the bucket, but yeah, we had to get it approved by North Carolina ABC.
So did your competitors do the same thing?
Not, I think, to the extent that we did. I think some of them did do that, but I don't think they did quite as much as we did. I mean, look, we were trying to help the accounts back then and also trying to create some goodwill going forward as well. As like I said, we know how tough that business is, how small the margins are. Even when these guys just started reopening in the last 3 to 5 months, like I said, they operate out of pretty much out of their cash drawer, most of these accounts. And when we go and deliver $1,500 worth of beer product, they have to pay for it right away. So it's a tough business.
And that's really what I'm driving at, is too many businesses in this crazy world did the right thing, what you did, investing in the future and planting the seeds of goodwill, which hopefully you'll harvest later on.
Yeah, it was our owner who lives here in Charlotte, Clay Adams. It was Clay's idea because he's the 3rd generation and been around it all his life growing up. Clay's in his upper 40s at this point. And they just realized how tough time these accounts were going through, and it's the least that we could do. So.
Okay, I'm just curious about surprises. Donnie, what surprised you? And then we'll go around with the other panelists. What really surprised you?
Getting through the past year, I think
Yes.
it was the aluminum can shortage. That caught everybody off guard. Even like Anheuser-Busch, who controls a lot of their supply, they manufacture a lot of their own supply. They had shortages as well. So just some of the product shortage and the out of stocks, which we tried to take advantage of that as much as we could by eliminating SKUs. You guys have seen Coca-Cola and some of these others. They've gotten rid of Tab. They've gotten rid of some of these other products that just don't sell, that have the same terms on it. So we eliminated some SKUs where we could, and we tried to push some other products that were in stock that didn't have the same velocity in normal times.
Okay, good. Tom, what was a big surprise for you in your industry?
Clearly, the level of demand was a surprise, and we have almost 1,000 employees, and most of which are in distribution centers and driving trucks, and just the loyalty and commitment and the hard work, their job, they're taking 16 feet pieces of lumber and loading out and packing out orders. It is hard work. Just the hours they committed to servicing the customer and servicing the company were just outstandingly. And I surprised they did everything we called on them to do.
I have a question for Tom as well, Don. So I was in the process of recruiting CFOs for this roundtable. I did talk to a CFO of a home builder because I wanted to try to get him on, but he was unavailable. But he was saying that it's really tough right now on the supply chain of what it's going to cost for materials.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are one of the top, like I mentioned, staircase builders. Are you keeping your prices the same because you had the inventory, or are you jacking them up?
No, we are certainly following the market, and in many cases ahead of the market. Where we have certain contractual commitments and 60-day notices and those sort of things, we're obviously honoring those. But it's amazing demand coupled with price, what it's done to our top line. Obviously, the concern is at some point will people just going to say, okay, I don't need the stair system, or I don't need the molding because the price is too much. There's only so much cheap money can offset. So that's something we certainly keep our eyes on. But no, we've been right in there with the market and getting
Okay, and I'll ask Steve the same question because Steve, when I look at your business, I think, okay, hospitality and travel, you should have been dead. So
we were dead for 7 weeks, and a lot of things. There were a lot of surprises for us. One, we closed on March 17th. March 18th, 98% of our sales went away. Quickly, sales dry up. Okay, and we had a lot of the refunds of tickets and hotels and groups and et cetera. But so sales quickly went away. I was thrilled with our organization. We truly looked at it, and this sounds cliche, and I'm sorry, but we looked at it as an incredible opportunity. How could we redesign our business? So, we had two main things that we were focusing on. How can we keep our employees and guests safe? We wanted to open safely, and we wanted to open profitably. So we just made a huge pivot, and the other two things that surprised me: our employees came back, and our guests came back. Now they all wore masks and they all washed their hands and they were safe. And I guess the other thing is I was absolutely shocked and dismayed with how much power various governmental entities have over you as an individual and as a company. They have, in a state of emergency, they have full power, period.
All right, who else has some questions for these sharp folks?
Hi, it's Bob. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Bob.
Bob, what's your question, Bob?
My question to Tom. I'm a CFO, and I build teams, and I understand lean manufacturing and supply and demand. My recent project was with calzone cases, was the Ascot type protection cases. And I understand the supply and demand, but when it comes to the building industry, or we say the residential building industry, and I live in Wilmington, and they're really developed, building more homes than ever there. I've heard, and I don't have enough information on this, and that's why I'm asking Tom, the prices have doubled or tripled. Is this going to be a slow trend going down in pricing of lumber materials for distribution?
Yeah, no, that's the question we ask ourselves and try to get a handle on. I think the general consensus is it will be, more of a measure down. We don't feel that it's going to be a bubble that bursts, because there is strong underpinning demand for our product. I think if we all had our druthers, we just assume begin to see things normalize. We would love 8 to 10% a year in sales growth and prices going up a couple, 3 points a year. We'd be happy. It's a challenge to be in this situation for a long period of time. So it feels like to me that it will naturally begin to correct itself. If it's originally people were calling for it in the second half of 2021, I think they're now saying early 2022 before kind of the mania of the demand and the pricing begins to just naturally correct. But anyone's guess is as good as mine. I certainly spent a lot of time talking to bankers and industry people trying to answer that very question. So if you know, you email me, you contact me. All right.
I will do that. I will do that. I just I know that Canada is getting into more in the market of supplying lumber to the United States, but I don't know what that impact is, and it might take a while for them to pick up the speed.
Yeah, is it a supply issue, Tom?
It's certainly a demand outstripping supply issue. I think supply is in part being driven by, obviously COVID effects. And we mentioned trucking, we mentioned containers. It is really literally a global supply chain, certainly that we distribute and supply to our customers. And even beyond that, your builders, it's global. There's different species of wood and different applications for the various species. And managing it, we tried to pivot as much from South America to Eastern Europe from China to New Zealand and Vietnam and those sort of places. So it's just an overall, Donnie mentioned it, it's just an overall issue with getting drivers, getting trucks, getting product, from the time the trees drop to having employees to make the finished product, to actually getting it on the ships, to getting it in the trucks, to getting it here. So it's just a holistic supply chain issue that we're experiencing.
Steve, have you had any supply chain issues at Biltmore? I know Donnie mentioned the aluminum cans, but that makes sense for his business. But
we had issues initially getting the protective equipment, the masks, the glass, and things like that. But we were able, we had a great crew. They stayed on it and got it. As far as other, the wine industry was really not impacted. They were impacted by the smoke taint that happened with the major fires out west last year. Most of our grapes come from California, and so we had some issues there. But really, after after the first month or so, really no issues, Todd.
Bob, thanks for your question. Anybody else have a question of the roundtable? We still have some time. Maybe we could do yeah, Don, what's up?
I'm curious about, it sounds like all three of them retained their staff. Steve, how did you retain yours? Donnie, how did you, and Tom? There's got to be three different answers there. That, to me, that's the fundamental key, because some of the businesses I worked with, they did retain, others, everybody went gone. So I'm curious what the story is.
We were right at 2,500 employees. We're currently right now at 1,800 employees. We had a bunch of people retire, a bunch of people we had a lot of people retire, and we had about 82 full-time employees we had to part ways with. And that was tough. That was hard. We really tried to focus on the 1,800 that we still have and really let them know they are our number one asset. For us, in 2008, our business dropped about 15%. It was pure tickets, which is pure profit for us. We laid no one off. So this was quite a change, but again, in 08, about 18 to 20% drop in revenue, we had a 98% drop in revenue. And so initially on March, at the end of March, we furloughed 90% of our people. And we brought them back as quickly as we could, but it was by, and we assisted our employees in trying to get the unemployment. As you well remember, the federal unemployment was 600 at that time. We used the furlough credits. We sent a lot of folks home with pay. But anyway, we were able to bring back 1,800. I'm thrilled to death. I would love to have brought back the other 82, but it's one of those things that you got to match your people with your, or match your activity, people with your activity. So.
Yeah, Don, we didn't. We were able to navigate through without laying anybody off, letting employees go, no furloughs. What we did have to do was, of our 550 so employees, about 90 of them are dedicated to our on-premise business. So they were sales reps and delivery drivers that supported just bars and restaurants. We segment our business that way. You either work on the on-premise or the off-premise. So all of those on-premise employees we repositioned to service the off-premise, working with supporting the convenience and grocery stores. Also, some of our sales reps came into the warehouse. I mean, it was all hands on. Everybody did what they had to do, because when March, April hit, we didn't really know what direction the business was going to go, how long this virus was going to last. I mean, how long it was going to make people just stay in their homes. We investigated the paycheck protection stuff, and because again, we didn't know how severe it was going to be. Turned out business was good for us, and we decided paycheck protection we did not need, didn't pursue that. Thankfully we did after everything came out as well. But we were able to retain everybody in a kind of a non-traditional way.
Okay, good for you. Tom, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a tale of the type of employee. I mean, your core, I would call corporate. We're a very centralized company. Employees here in Wilkes County and Surrey County, they measure tenure in decades. So we were really able, obviously, to retain them. I mean, they've been long-serving employees. The majority of the distribution center employees outside of those two counties, places such as Somerville, South Carolina, and the Houston area in Texas and California, it was a challenge at times to retain some of those folks. Certainly, once we got through the initial days of the pandemic, we tried various retention bonuses and rewarding people for extra hour work and special bonuses, all those sort of things to keep employees. I mean, we have grown, our employment has grown during the pandemic, but we are certainly not at optimal employment. We have almost close to 100 positions that we would like to fill today if we could, and just aren't, because we just can't find the people, employees willing to work. Like I said, it's not easy work, and long hours in some cases. So we've been able to maintain and retain a lot of our core employees, but there has been turnover, and getting employees has proved to be a challenge.
Well, Tom, there might be a recruiter who could help you, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. So what kind of skill sets are you having a hard time filling, Tom?
Yeah, it's basically the distribution center employees.
Okay.
The people who are picking the product, and then truck drivers. If anybody knows how to retain truck drivers, and I hear Donnie saying having the same issue, I would love to talk to them. But they've got to be making big bank if they actually can hire and retain and recruit truck drivers, because we've tried. I mean, in some cases we've raised our truck driver pay 33%, and just can't really get any takers. It's crazy.
I got a strange call today from some company that thought I was with some kind of construction firm that wanted to recruit me. It was weird. It was really weird.
Tom, this is a good message for everybody. You've increased pay for truck drivers by 1/3, and you still can't find what you need.
Correct. And some markets, and some select markets, Somerville, South Carolina, and now California in some places. Yeah.
What are you going to have to raise the price to get people? What do you think?
Again, I think some of it has to do with, we're over the road, we're nights away from home, and all those sort of things. Again, we have those key employees that are dedicated and committed, but it's ramping up for some of the growth that we've experienced. It's proven a challenge just because the way our routes and the way we have nights away from home, and they have options. People are going to clearly go with driving local or not having nights away from home, that sort of thing.
Is
Okay.
your product coming into West Coast ports or Northeast or where?
Most of our stuff's coming into Charleston. Some of it's on the West Coast.
I'm actually working on a confidential VP of recruiting role right now for a company here in North Carolina. And I've been talking to it's a trucking company. And I've been talking to a lot of companies or a lot of candidates. And I've learned that they say there's like 200,000, like a shortage of 200,000 truck drivers right now in the US. And they were talking about some of the strategies. I mean, they're doing geo-fencing in social media around truck stops to get these guys. They're obviously looking at pay and benefits, trying to look at how much time they're spending with their family versus being on the road. They're speaking on panels about women in trucking. I've learned a lot in the past 2 weeks just working on this search. That sounds like a lot of people are in a big pinch right now.
Thanks, Ben.
It is a real challenge. Certainly for us, and I think we're not alone in that regard.
Well, if you can't deliver the product, you can't book a sale.
Yeah, and again, it's not. It's more about servicing the growth component as opposed to the historical we've been, and we're having to resort to third-party trucking companies, which that's no cheap options, especially because they're having trouble getting drivers themselves. So there's no elegant short-term solution. We can work the problem, and some of the things Ben mentioned. Try to be creative.
Who has some regrets, things that we did and they didn't work? What are the lessons that we share? What are the things that we tried that just failed miserably? Steve, anything failed?
Not really. I mean, that was, okay. When we were blinded for about 4 months, when we furloughed or laid off our staff, we did 90% across the board. Including our accounting staff. So as we started cranking back up, we didn't bring our accounting people quickly. So literally, we were doing the accounting in our heads, and intuition, and luckily we were right, but we were blinded by financial information. If I had to do it over again, I would not have furloughed equally across the board. I would not have furloughed accounting as much, and I would have brought them back a lot quicker because we were really blinded for a good amount of time. Luckily, we had enough experience that it didn't impact us, and we didn't make any bad financial decisions.
And I'm not picking on you. I appreciate your honesty and integrity, but elaborate on that. So what is, next time something really crazy happens, Steve, what are you not going to do and what are you going to do more of?
Well, you look at the functions you absolutely have to have. One size doesn't fit all. If you want to make sure you keep your IT people around, if that, it specifically your hardware and your cybersecurity, and we did do that, by the way. But you go through function by function, and if you needed to, for cash flow purposes, to furlough 90% of the people, then you would. You just look at it department by department. Some departments you may not need at all. Or you may only need, 5% of them. Other departments, you may need 50%. And the other thing I would say is we had insurance coverage in our captive, 1/4 of the loss. We're working to get that up. We have no clue if we'll ever face this again, but we're looking to get that coverage up 4 times what it is right now. Just that way, if we get hit again, it would have been nice to know that we could have gone, 5 months closed down.
So that to me is a clear takeaway, Steve. You said something earlier that resonates with all of us. You like sleeping at night. I do too. Okay, Donnie, your only regret is the fact that you didn't bring samples for everybody today, but we're going to give you a pass on that. Next time, we'll rectify that, right? Tom, what about you? So any regrets that you have? Things that you did that just didn't work out even though we tried?
No, not really. I mean, some of the early learnings relative to cleaning and shutting down entire areas and probably going overboard on some of the cleaning things we did. Maybe that was a secret to us not having the infection rate that others experienced. Who knows? But I would say that's really a regret. But certainly, if we had to do it over again, we probably would be quite as aggressive as we adopted in the early of COVID.
Yeah, well, let's all hope that we never have to go through this again. But the whole point of this discussion today is to share lessons with each other so that we can all help and learn from each other on what to do the next time, God forbid, something really crazy happens from the next universe.
And it will happen.
We'll quote you on that, but what would really be helpful, Tom, if you could give us the timing.
Yeah, right. I'll take Dr. Fauci on that one.
Who else has some questions? Shane? Matt?
I do, Don. I'd be interested to hear what each of these individuals did as far as trying to take advantage of the first and second round of the PPP loans or the employee retention credits.
Donnie, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, like I said, we looked at the PPP program, and it for a variety of reasons didn't work for us. Didn't that employee number, size of the company. Ultimately, our company ended up performing pretty well, so it wasn't applicable to us. Employee retention credit.
So you didn't even apply for it?
No, we didn't. We did. We banked with Wells with their beverage finance group out of Atlanta, and they were talking to us about it. And they were one of the ones that got criticized by only working with their bigger clients or their existing clients, for better or worse. But we talked with them about it, decided it wasn't right for us.
All right, so Donnie, when I teach ethics to CPAs, can I use you as an example?
Yeah, good example.
Sure.
I'm being serious because this is a fundamental issue. I've heard some companies who, to Ted's point, they took all the triple P they could because they saw it as free money, and others said, no, we're going to be okay. We're not going to be great, but we're going to be okay. And you're in the latter. Is that fair?
Yes. Again, for a variety of reasons. And we've got some peers throughout the country that the disclosures all came out. There's some other distributors that did take PPP loans. I don't know anybody here in the area, but across the country, there were some.
Steve, you took some PPP, didn't you?
No, we didn't touch the PPP.
Oh, really?
We did none of the PPP. Now, what we did do is we became experts really quickly in March, in mid-March to the end of the March in the Pandemic Act, and we understood exactly what the federal unemployment would do. And if you remember, for all these years, if you got laid off, you got 67% of your salary in the state of North Carolina, or a maximum of the equivalent of $18,000 a year, or $350 a week. But we understood, and we studied the act as quickly as we could, because with the $600 of federal unemployment was attached to whatever you were getting as far as the state. So if you were getting $350 from the state, you would get another $600, and that was $950 a week, or the equivalent of $50,000 a year. And we utilized that in our layoff. if you make less than 50,000 a year, we knew we could send you home, and you would not be financially impacted. We paid all our employees' health insurance for the bulk of in the last year, and specifically the ones that were laid off. But we had arguments at the tail end of March with our health insurance experts and our benefits experts, that not health insurance, but our benefits experts and our CPA firm, that that's not going to happen. You know, you're only going to get 67% of that 600, and really 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning when I was watching Senator Bernie Sanders arguing that he wanted to get that no matter what you pay, that you would get your state plus the federal, and that was huge for us. That was very helpful in our layoff. But we did not take any PPP intentionally.
How about you, Tom?
No, we didn't take any.
About the ERC, did you do that?
What was that, Ted?
How about the ERC, the credit,
The employee retention credit.
employee retention credit?
Yeah,
That's a new one that just came out in March, and it's just a brand new thing.
We're not doing that in 2021.
It's the same here.
Yeah, same here. We're not utilizing it.
Thank you, folks.